If you happen to like beautiful photographs, you probably won't like what I'm going to say. Therefore, let's start where it all began. Sometimes it makes it easier to think along. For me, it started with the work of a photographer, Aarsman, and he works for the Amsterdam municipality, a civil servant, and his job was to record a changing city. Every morning he would take his moped and drive to the outskirts of Amsterdam, where the building sites were, and the tunnels were digged, and the ring road was built. There was always a lot of sand in his pictures, and that's why the civil servants he worked with called him the sand photographer. You probably noticed already that there is a moped in every image. The story goes like this. One day, Aarsman was taking a photo on a building site, and he was just focusing on his camera and the subject. And behind his back, somebody was stealing his moped. And he swore never to leave his moped out of sight. So what have we got here? We've got very straightforward photography. There are no artistic ambitions. Aarsman was not interested in taking interesting photographs. He just wanted to do his job, and he didn't want his moped to be stolen again. And that's what makes him so authentic. Now imagine a photographer with artistic ambitions. There was a time that I was a photographer with artistic ambitions. You know, I had shows in galleries and in museums. I made books. There were concepts and projects and themes and series and subjects. I could have bought a moped and put it in every image that I took. I could have adopted Aarsman's style, his straightforward style. I even could have had success with it, but it would have been just another concept. It would have been fake, and it would not have been authentic at all. Isn't it weird that somebody working for the municipality is more authentic than an artist may ever be? Mind you, a civil servant working from 9 to 5. There are two things that you can conclude from this. One thing is, it's dangerous to have artistic ambitions. They may prevent you from being authentic. Second, if you really want to make an interesting picture, you shouldn't want to make them. Do you want me to repeat that? So after I saw the work of Aarsman and realizing what it meant, I dropped the projects and the concepts and the themes and the series and the subjects. I sold my equipment. I threw away half of my negatives. And the rest I sold to the Dutch Photo Museum, het Nederlands Fotomuseum. And I persuaded them to put it downloadable for free on their website, high res, so you could make prints like this of it. Sometimes people send me a picture of what they've done with my picture. It may look that I've done this all in a whim, but in fact it took me years to do it. But man, what a relief. Finally, I could see what there is to see. Most photography is not about seeing what there is to see. Most photography is about presenting the world in a well-composed way. And that's not easy to do because the world is very chaotic and you have to be very skillful as a photographer to do it. And when you do it as a photographer, people say, "You're a good photographer. Look at this image. What a beautiful image. It's almost like a painting." And it's not modern painting, it's not Andy Warhol, it's old-fashioned 17th, 18th century, 19th century painting. In 1816, a French naval ship named the Medusa, sank to the bottom of the sea, and 147 seamen managed to get on a raft. They floated around for 2 weeks, many died, and eventually 15 seamen were saved. 2 years later, in 1818, the French painter Theodore Sirigot painted this ordeal. And now we go to 2008. Georgian army invaded South Ossetia. The Russian army expelled them very soon. And this is a picture of soldiers retreating from South Ossetia. See the connection? I can show a lot of pictures like this, with all these connections between painting and photography, but I'm not going to do it. I trust that you think along. I only show this one, a picture I made myself in 1998. It's very popular. People like it very much. It's most downloaded from the internet of the website of the Nederlands Fotomuseum. You know why people like this picture? Because it resembles almost every picture of Caspar David Friedrich. And it's not on purpose that people like it. It's not on purpose that I made it this way. It's unaware. It's something we carry around with us. It's our cultural history. And of course, in the beginning, I liked it when people said, "This is a beautiful picture, you're a good photographer." But there came a moment that I thought, I want to see what there is to see and not being dictated by painting all the time, old-fashioned painting all the time. Can photography have a beauty of its own? And if beauty is too much to ask, can it be interesting on its own? Interesting? If you really want to make interesting pictures, you shouldn't try to make them. So I stopped. This is photography that falls on your doormat every week. It's inside leaflets of the supermarkets. This is how supermarkets present the meat they offer. Anybody thinking about photography now? Now you think of meat. This photography is so uninteresting that you forget photography, you just think about the subject, and that's what makes it interesting to me. There is a big realm of things to discover in this area of photography. This is one of the ones I love the most. Everybody should have this picture on his desk. Then you don't have to crack your brain anymore which size is bigger, A4, A3, A6. So I started to collect this kind of photography. But then I had to move to a smaller apartment. I mean, I was a photographer, I stopped photography, it's going to cost you. And to fit in myself, I had to throw away a lot of stuff. And in the meantime, the piles of uninteresting photographs were getting bigger and bigger. Should I throw away the piles of uninteresting photographs? Or should I throw away the puppets my mother made in the old people's home? Every time she made a puppet, every time she made it, I'm just going to put the jacket on the remaining time. Every time she made a puppet, she would show it to me, and I said, "Do you like it, Hans?" She said, "Mom, it's great." and then she said, of course, "Do you want to have it?" I said, "Yes, I really like to have it." So I got lots of these puppets in my house. I held them above the bin, but I couldn't let loose. It felt like betraying my mother's memory. Then I thought, memory, isn't photography about memory? So I bought the camera again, took a pictures of the puppets of my mother, held them above the bin, and could let loose. And that way I managed to throw away a lot of stuff. This is a childhood rocket. I mean, what does a big grown-up man do with this stuff that is for children? I didn't throw it away, I gave it away. This is my television set. People of the television area don't have to worry. It's not going to be a trend, because it was taken away in a minute. I wrote on it, "Still in order, doet het nog." And then I got a phone call from Foam magazine. It's an international, notorious photography magazine. And they said, "We heard that you're in the possession of a camera again." I said, yes. I have to confess, I'm in the possession of a camera again. "What do you do with it?" I said, "Well, I just take pictures of things I throw away." And they said, "Well, we like to see it." And before I knew, I had 24 pages in this magazine on things I threw away. This I didn't throw away. I found out that you can use photography also if you, to prevent you from buying things you don't really need. Yeah. I managed to postpone buying this computer for a year. I just waited until I spilled a cup of coffee on the old one. And it was published in the beginning of 2008. And the title was Photography Against Consumerism. A few months later, the credit crisis started. So you can see what you can achieve with photography if you skip the painting. So I was back in business again, but not really. I was not really back in business because I wasn't going to look for the next subject and project and theme and series and whatever. It just happened that I wanted to throw away stuff. Photography seemed to help, so I took pictures of it. I wasn't interested in making interesting pictures. I was just interested in throwing away stuff. So then you start wondering, what makes a picture interesting? Do you think this is an interesting picture? It was taken half a year ago. A boy shot in his school teachers and fellow students and then shot himself. And among the things people put in front of the school, there was this panel in the background. And in German, in English it says, "God, where were you?" Well, those questions are not easy to answer. There was another question as well, warum, which means why in English. It's not even more difficult to answer. And here we have the mysterious creator of these panels. By the looks of him, he's not so interested in answering the questions, but more in need of some attention. And that is what he was going to get. But I was wondering, I've seen this guy before, and do you notice the R on his panels and the question mark? They're very strange in the room as well. So I did some research, and I came across, do you remember 1 year ago, this guy who put his daughter in the basement and made children with her in Austria? Fritzl. This is his house. And this is the mysterious creator. And now he writes, however could it come to this? And warum again in John Wieder is something like, not again. And still, this was not his coming out. His coming out was 2007, December the 17th. It's in Darrow, also Germany. And here, this woman had shot herself and her children. And he put warum and John Wieder, the old panels, in front of the house on the pavement. And 2 days later, he managed to get them next to the door. But this is not the end. Do you remember this year, Queen's Day, the 30th of April? This guy was bumped into the crowd and then bumped into the monument. Among the things people put there to show their sympathy, well, in a purely aesthetical, formal way, this is not beautiful photography, but there is something else in it. There is something to discover, there's something to find. And that we can call beauty too, but it's another kind of beauty. It's not the beauty of the old-fashioned painting, but it's the beauty of the scientific discovery, of the mathematical formula, of the simple solution to a complicated problem, of investigation. And suddenly I found myself writing for the Volkskrant, it's a big Dutch newspaper, and analyzing pictures in this investigative way that I just showed you. And this is what I wrote about the Warum guy. And I was very happy that I could, every week I could tell my story about photography in a different, not painterly way. But there was one drawback, and that was that I could show one picture. I couldn't show my research. And then the Volkskrant came up with a very simple solution to this complicated problem. They gave me 2 pages instead of half a page. So now I can analyze complete stories on photography. I've got more space for my research, and I've got more space for myself. Of course, I earn a bit more money, and I move to a bigger apartment. Thank you very much.